Sairam, everyone. And Greg, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to share with your Region 8 devotion program. I would like to offer this talk to our beloved Lord Sri Sathya Sai. And before I go into talking about Sathya Sai Education and Human Values, I'd like to just share a little bit of my background and also how I became aware of, or the awakening of Sri Sathya Sai in my life, our beloved Swami. I was born into a very devout Christian family. In fact, my aunt and my grandmother founded the church that we attended. They started with the church in the home of my aunt. Then they moved to a dwelling which was only a basement. And then I watched them, their determination, their struggle as they completed the building of that church. And I mention this because them doing that for the community, I thought of temples being built in India, or the temples that are there. And I'd like to show a photograph of that church, the completion of it. And mind you, it took 9-10 years for them to have it come to completion or fruition. You can show the photograph. And I think the significance of this for me is the fact that after my first trip to India in 1983, I had a dream that the people that I grew up with on the street I lived on were lined up on both sides of the street waiting for darshan. They were sitting, legs crossed and so forth, and they were waiting for Lord Krishna. And as Krishna came through giving darshan, when he got to me and stood in front of me, his form changed to Swami, our beloved Sathya Sai. And then Swami, my aunt and I went to her house, which was a few doors down from where I grew up. And my aunt went into the kitchen and began cooking, and Swami and I sat in her living room, and he gave me indications of how he wanted me to worship him. So that helped me to also realize we don't know who we were in other lifetimes or what religion we were. And so it took me years to figure out that dream. And in this lifetime, the people that were receiving darshan from Lord Krishna are devotees of Jesus in this lifetime. And here I'd like to mention that my mother was a very spiritual person. She very spiritual, and she suffered during her lifetime with many different illnesses. And she would tell us that when she was ill, Jesus would come and stand at the foot of her bed and tell her that he is always with her, that she would be okay, and that he's watching over her. And she lived to be 94 years old. And also when I was in India the first time in 1983, and I think I mentioned that I stayed there for 9 months. And I had the blessing of going to Rishikesh. And I was walking along the foothills of the Himalayas and right at the banks of the Ganges River. And the thought popped in my mind that I'd like something to take back with me. And I looked down and there was a medium-sized stone about this big that was shaped in a heart. And it even had red veins running through it. And when I returned to the States, when I showed that stone to Sai children, they saw the face of Swami on it. Then when I showed it to my mother, and she didn't know the story with the Sai children, but I showed her the stone and she saw the face of Jesus on it. So how did I become aware of Sathya Sai Baba and when? And over the years, I mentioned that I grew up in the church, but over the years, I more or less drifted away. And I always had this feeling of all religions lead us to the one God. And that was not really talked about or preached in the church that I attended, but this is the feeling I had inside of me. I believe that all people are basically good, and also that I have a deep interest in other cultures and other groups of people. And this stayed with me throughout my adulthood. And it sort of left a void in me that seemed to widen the older I got. And so during this time, or over this period of time, there was nothing material that could fill that void I was feeling, and nothing on this earth plane seemed to be able to fill it. So in 1982, one evening I came home, I was getting out of my car and I looked up at the sky and saw the stars, and this thought popped in my mind that God is on earth in human form and I want to see him. And after that, it just seemed my life became topsy-turvy and spinning totally out of my control. And I began having visions, spiritual visions, spiritual dreams. And I remember writing, sometimes I soar through the sky, the sun, the sky, and I become one. And then sometimes I sit by the seashore, cold, wet, and shivering. And during this time, I visited a friend who I had no idea that she had been to India or why. And I saw a picture of this man with bushy hair, and he was smiling. And it was similar to the photo here with me. And I asked her casually, who is that? And she said, well, he's a friend of mine. So we sat in her living room, and all of a sudden, the entire room filled with a golden, beautiful golden light. And to my right, I could see like orange. I didn't know quite what it was, but I remember seeing that. And I understand it now, but you know, my friend's reaction, she was so excited and jubilant. And she was saying, he's here, he's here. And I sat there calmly, accepting his presence, not knowing that it was our Sathya Sai, but I accepted the presence and I calmly told her, I know, I feel his presence. And then a while after that, I was visiting with a friend that's a Pentecostal minister, and we were sitting and talking. And all of a sudden he became quiet and he was staring at me. And then he just blurted out, there's someone standing behind you. They're wearing an orange robe and they have bushy hair. And he wants you to know to don't worry about anything, that he's taking care of you. And that came from a Pentecostal minister. I don't know if he would even remember the occurrence. And then shortly after this, in July 1983, the same friend that I had the first experience of Sathya Sai with, she invited me to attend a public meeting with her at the Ebell Theater in Los Angeles. And I didn't find it or feel that it was anything unusual because she and I had visited temples, Buddhist temples, Hindu temples, various churches, various denominations together. And so we went to the Ebell Theater and someone spoke, and then they showed a film of Sri Sathya Sai and the Human Values program. And I saw him walking, and I've heard many people say this, that it looked as if he was gliding, but all of a sudden his presence filled the room and I was only aware of him and his presence. And I don't know how long that lasted for me. And my friend mentioned that it seemed that I had left the room for a period of time, but this recognition of Sri Sathya Sai Baba as being God in human form, and my spirit knew, I just knew that this was God in human form. So the next day, I had a dream of Sai Baba, and we were standing under the meditation tree in Prashanti Nilayan, and there was a golden world on a pendulum, and he was putting me on the pendulum on the golden world with him, and we were going to the mountaintop. There were 2 ridges already at the top of that mountain, and this trip would be the 3rd ridge on the mountaintop. And I still am I'm trying to understand that dream. I still don't know what the 3 ridges represented. So then the next day, a ticket came in the mail, and I called up the agency and they said, ma'am, you must be mistaken. We didn't send any ticket out. And fortunately, my friend was there to help me through this, because she explained to me that Sai Baba was calling me to India, and I was more than happy to go. And I needed a passport. So when I went to get the passport, I don't have an official birth certificate. I have an affidavit of my birth because I was born at home, and the midwife forgot to file a birth certificate for me. And so the gentleman at the counter told me it will take quite some time for me to get my passport. And it was beyond the date because the date of the ticket was for me to depart in August, mid-August. And so I stood there and I inwardly said, Sai Baba, if you want me to come to India to see you, then you'll take care of this. And the gentleman at the counter looked at me, smiled, and he said, ma'am, come back this afternoon, your passport will be ready. And so I ended up departing the United States alone. I had only read a few, maybe a chapter of one book on Sathya Sai, and had not attended a Sai center here in the States, but I knew that I was going to see God. And I knew that he was taking care of me along the way. And I ended up being in England, and it ended up being for 3 whole months. And it was a wonderful experience, but I started to become concerned. I felt as if Sai Baba had me in a holding pattern. I did learn about Hinduism. I had lived in California and moved to Beverly Hills for a short time, and a Jewish community. So I had learned about Judaism. And then before I left for India, I moved with my brother. I put all my things in storage and moved with my brother. And my brother is a Muslim imam. So I got some good lessons or teachings on Islam. And so going back to being in England, that's where I met Genevieve and Victor Kanu. But I remember one day I just became so fearful and doubtful about my journey to see God. And here he was holding me up in England for 3 months. And what do I do? And so that night I had a dream, and Sathya Sai came and let me look into his eyes, and it took all the fear away. And that next day I learned of an upcoming conference in Rome. And so a group of us went to that conference in Rome, and then we came back, and I ended up arriving in India a few days before Swami's birthday. And I didn't know very much about the process, of going for darshan and so forth. I knew a little bit, but not a lot. And I was late and ended up on the very last row. And a Seva doll came and just started poking me in my back, move, move, move. And I ended up on the front row, right across from the mandir. And right after I was put there on the front row, Sai Baba came out of the mandir and stood there, and I thought, oh my God, this is my lifetime, or probably many lifetimes, dream of seeing God in human form. And it was the most beautiful, beautiful sight that I think I've ever seen. And he stood there a while, and then he stepped off the mandir, the mandir area, and came direct and stood directly in front of me and let me look into his eyes, the same as that dream that I had had in England. And the internal message was, that I just want to let you know that I know that you're here. And that was the beginning of my journey with Sri Sathya Sai. And I remember thinking, well, God is everything and everywhere, so I won't become attached to the form of Sri Sathya Sai. And a few days after that, it was like, I never want to leave here. I want to stay here forever, and I will not leave. So I did end up staying for 9 months, many wonderful experiences. And then when Swami would travel away from the ashram, sometimes I would travel to where he was going also. And other times I would stay there at the ashram. But as I mentioned, I did have the opportunity to visit Rishikesh, and I also met devotees, Sai devotees all over India, or there in Delhi, and also Madras or Chennai. And the Sai devotees there were like, so many of them like colonies of ants and so devoted. And I remember meeting the ambassador to South Africa, and we were talking about how people, he mentioned that how people come to India and they see all the suffering on the surface. And he said, but where you came from, the suffering is more inside. And he said, therefore, wherever you go, wipe a tear. And that stuck with me. And I even tear up a bit when I think about it, that wherever you go, wipe a tear. And so I think I've talked enough about myself, and now I'd like to talk a bit about the unprecedented, quintessential Sathya Sai Education and Human Values programs, and with emphasis on Sathya Sai Education and Human Values. And I've worked with the program for over 30 years. And I started off working with SSE, and then I became involved with SSEHV. And I love the program. It feels like it's the essence of who I am. And this Sathya Sai Education and Human Values is for Swami's gift to all of humanity. And I'd like to show you or give you a brief overview of information on the Institute, and also some of the work I've done here in St. Louis. And I also have a short clip of a group of teens that were in SSEHV, and I began working with them in June, and by October, they put this video together, which they wrote their script. I was merely there to guide them. And this is what came from them and how they feel about Sathya Sai Education and Human Values. I would like to mention at one point in working with them, I almost gave up. Granted, I had made a commitment, but we weren't clicking, and typical teenagers, but we stuck it out, and the video will show you the results of the perseverance and working with a group of teens. And so now if we could have the PowerPoint. I'll give you just a very brief overview with Sathya Sai Education and Human Values in the USA. Next slide, please. We have an institute of Sathya Sai Education and Human Values, and it's one of many institutes across the world. The director is Mrs. Kalika Grana, and her contact information is on the slide. And the institute provides SSEHV Course 1 and Course 2 trainings, workshops on various topics, and with SSEHV integrated into those topics, including SSEHV parenting workshops. Anyone interested in the training can go through it, but we do like those that go through the trainings to take the information and take it into the community. And we've trained persons in the effort to work with SSEHV in schools, colleges, service projects, any sort of community program or youth organizations, adult organizations, and so forth. Next slide. Next slide, please. No, it jumped. Next, please. Also, currently, we're developing courses or course trainings for SSEHV in leadership and SSEHV in the medical profession. And over the past year, we've done online introductory workshops, and we're working with several physicians to present the workshops to persons in the healthcare profession. And we've presented to over 125 medical professionals, including physicians, nurses, social workers, psychologists, and so forth. Next slide. And here in St. Louis, I was able to implement Sathya Sai Education and Human Values, trained all of the school staff, everyone, and worked with the program. Our theme for that year was a year of peace. And some of the activities, the art teacher designed the coach for the peace train, and if there was a conflict between the children, they would get and if they worked it out peacefully, they would get a coach to go on the peace train. The Cool Peace Bus was for self-discipline on school, riding the school bus to and from school. Next slide. Caring communities, an after-school program for youth. And the photograph of this young lady doing silent sitting is just a classic. We have the peace table, the children to work out conflicts. We went on field trips. We had a garden next to a house of a 103-year-old woman who would come out and talk with the children. Next, please. United Church Neighborhood Houses Centers, 4 of those centers throughout the city of St. Louis, and the program lasted for 9 years. All the teachers would be trained and have refresher trainings, and approximately 700 children benefited from that program. And again, that was with the United Church of Christ, which has these centers for underserved children, families, and the community at large in 4 different locations throughout the city of St. Louis. Next. And these are photographs of some of their activities. Next. At this, with the St. Louis City Health Department, their peer educators, I worked with the chief of family and community health, and he asked if I could come in and conduct a training on character development for their peer educators. And so I won't go into a lot of detail about it, but this is what I mentioned about working with a group of teenagers, and it was very interesting. The commissioner of the health department had asked them what they learned, and she was so impressed with what they stated. She asked them to put together something, a skit play, whatever, to be presented to other youth. And there will be a video following this PowerPoint. The event was filmed. It ran on cable TV for a number of, I think for about a year, and it's been circulated throughout the world. These youth, as will be stated in their video, have various backgrounds, but I would like to say that they are now, one is a pediatrician, one is a pediatric nurse, one is has his own barbershop, one is an artist with his own media studio, one is a children's book author, and he's also working with youth at the Girls and Boys Club, or Boys and Girls Club, and he's wanting to implement SSEHV at that location. Next, please. And here's a photograph of when the video was filmed. Next, please. And we joined in with a number of agencies in the city of St. Louis, Healthcare USA, the United Church Neighborhood Houses, the Health Department, our PBS television station, Salvation Army, Save a Lot Grocery Store, and the Art Museum, and a youth program with the city. And we had a walk for values and also picnicked along with that. And a Missouri state senator served as the Grand Marshal for that, the walk for values. Next, please. And here are some photographs of that event. Next, please. Humanity Center for Formerly Homeless Women and Their Children. We worked with an existing agency. We did a needs survey and worked hand in hand with the staff at that location and trained community volunteers in SSEHV along with the Sai Young Adults. The Sai Young Adults worked with the children in the project. And all 3 centers, the Sai centers in the St. Louis area, were involved. And this is where there was room for everyone. We conducted SSEHV classes, classes with workshops for the women. We did GED classes and so forth. And what we would do is a segment of SSEHV, the activity section, we would have people from different areas of expertise come in and present a workshop and that workshop was in harmony with whatever topic or whatever the theme was for the SSEHV class. And I'd like to mention too that our local PBS TV station worked with us, and they were trained in SSEHV or persons in their education department. And they came and did workshops, for instance, using television as a positive educational tool for children. We had financial literacy, GED classes, as I mentioned, computer classes. Next, please. Health issues, and we worked with the Sai medical camp. When the medical camps were held, the women and their children were invited to attend those medical camps. They learned resume writing, appropriate business attire, and so forth. And lunch, as I mentioned, there was room for everyone at the Sai centers to be a part of this project. They didn't necessarily have to be trained in SSEHV, but there was room for everyone. And lunch for each session that we had was provided by Sai devotees. The Sai devotees, some of them did job leads. Some of them donated furniture, household items, toiletries, and computers and so forth, because these women were being prepared to move into homes. And so they needed the furniture and so forth for those homes. Our Christmas, we would have Christmas parties, and I remember someone from Tennessee sent a huge box of lab quilts that we gave to the ladies, and the various gifts for Mother's Day, the children making cards for Mother's Day and those kinds of things. And keep in mind that this was an Sathya Sai Education and Human Values Service project, where we had people from the community that conducted workshops. We had members from the Sai centers that were able to come in and work with the project. And then we had those that were trained in SSEHV to teach the classes, SSEHV classes for the women. And then, as I mentioned, the young adults had been trained to work with the children. Next, please. And these are some photographs. Next, please. And so we were at Humanity Center for 5 years, and then we moved to Women's Safe House for abused women and their children, and we were there for 5 years. And we used the same model that we used for the formerly homeless women and their children, and modified it a bit. Next, please. And now I'd like to show the video that I was talking about of the teens with the St. Louis City Health Department.
Hello, my name is D1 Griggs. I'm with the Youth Empowerment Health Advocacy for the St. Louis Health Department. And today a question arose to me: why do we have war? But before you answer this question, let me ask you your opinion. Why do we have thugs? But more importantly, why do we have people who develop the thug mentality or create the thug mentality? See, there are many perspectives on that issue. But when I thought on these things, I thought back to the times when I was in the game and gang banging. And I really thought back to the fact that when I was in the streets, I was twisted in the mind because I was searching for a place of love. But I was residing in a place where envy, hate, and jealousy resided. However, I changed my thoughts towards life and people as well. And I realize now that people are instilled with values, human values. These values are truth, right action, peace, love, and nonviolence. And we all can connect these values together to work together. I learned about these values in the Sathya Sai Education and Human Values. And this education reiterates these values so that we all can work together with these values to create unity in the community. And it also humbles the corrupt mind and the corrupt spirit of those who have already claimed death as their fate. And we understand now through this course or education that we are all universal pieces and we all connect together and that we need one another to survive.
So, love with truth brings devotion in any genre of true love. Love cannot ferment without me because if it is not true, then it isn't. There will be seldom peace without truth, but when we combine, we make perfection and completion, binding strong every positive, healthy relationship, even if it's a keen settledness with nature. Right manners cannot be performed if it isn't in really one's heart and mind. We explore the world creating kindness, sincerity, equality, and real justice for all. Lastly, but certainly not least, truth with nonviolence is reality and deeply rooted in one's heart. Though it takes much discipline, we in turn help create love through peace, which helps us develop right responses or actions. That's what love has to do with us.
To contribute, we must hydrate ourselves with the Sathya Sai Education and Human Values teachings and take a step, or better yet 3, with the concept of head, heart, and hands. Right action is in perfect harmony with the concept of head, heart, and hands. What the head thinks should be critically examined or filtered by the heart, and the right action should be exhibited or carried out. This should be the right and positive outcome in every situation.
Peace with truth is honesty, sincerity, and trust. Peace with right action is determination, kindness, and responsibility. Peace with love is forgiveness, devotion, and sharing. And peace with nonviolence is equality and unity. There are many forms of love. There is self-love, meaning love for oneself or honoring yourself for who you really are. Psychology divides love into 3 basic categories, which are brotherly love, romantic love, and physical love. Divine love, also known as agape love, which is selfless love towards God, is also unconditional love, which signifies that you show love towards everyone, no matter who they are and what they do. Love does not necessarily involve people. For example, love can exist in regard to an object or idea. Love in opposition to fear begins with hope, which is the strong point against fear. Fear cannot overrun hope because if there is strictly hope in one's character, then their love will rule over any fear. Hatred opposed to fear starts with jealousy, then lies to oneself, which creates meanness in the heart that eventually develops into hatred. Love relates to truth because honesty shows truth. By being honest, peace develops. Right action then comes in and results in nonviolence. Sometimes, love can be confused with other feelings, such as affection, obsession, or feelings of friendship. Love can be destroyed by anger or jealousy that has taken over that feeling. Agape love is the divine love energy that flows through everyone. Some people know this and some don't. Although there are numerous definitions to love, I feel that the basic meaning would be the passion and tenderness shown towards a human existence.
Hello everyone, I'm Aaron Morris. I would like to thank everyone for their participation in making this event a reality. On behalf of the Youth Empowerment Advocacy of Health, the Department of Health, the YES program, Ms. Hampton and the Sathya Sai Neighborhood Houses, we greet you. Channel TV 10, my supervisor, Mr. Bill Dobson, all of you all, you lovely faces, parents, teachers, all of us, family of the human race, we greet you. Thank you for coming. Give yourselves a round of applause. I don't plan to be before you long, yet my desire is to paint for you a clear visualization of our last human value. Today I present to you nonviolence. What is nonviolence, I think? Or better yet, why was I chosen to present nonviolence? Based on my background, nonviolence would be something I know nothing about. Yet, because of my background, nonviolence should be something I have a pretty good idea of how it should be. One thing is for sure, I do know what isn't nonviolence, okay? Once upon a time, not so long ago, violence was as normal for me as tying my shoe. Violence was a way of life. I was once associated and a member of a street gang, organized street gang, who daily practiced and daily coached their members to commit violence as a mechanism of communication, to communicate warning or boundaries or territory. Also, violence was a mechanism or a method for a ranking process or a hierarchy, you know what I mean, a method of self-worth. Needless to say, I practiced a lot of wrong actions, not right actions, wrong actions. You know, fighting fire with fire, burning thresholds. You know, I want to go off my notes if I can. To me, in my understanding, nonviolence is the opposite of love. It's the opposite of peace. Not nonviolence, but violence is. It's the opposite of love and peace. Violence has no concern of how tall you are, how skinny you are, you know, how healthy you are or how unhealthy you are. Whether your gender is male or female, violence does not care about things like that. Violence consumes. And I believe violence is able to partake in our lives and overtake our natural selves. The way that the Heavenly Father intended us to be, it takes over us with a lack of understanding on things like love and peace and truth. A proper understanding and a proper respect of subjects like truth. Truth diminishes all things. Truth is a foundation in which anything that exists can stand on. You know, truth might not always be pleasurable. Sometimes when we accept certain truths, it might not make us feel as comfortable as we would like. But one thing is for sure, it will not misguide us. Truth will give us a clear picture and a clear understanding if we are able and allow ourselves to accept what is true. Peace is something that surpasses all understanding. It's a calmness. It's a tranquility. It's sereneness within that no one can take from us, that the Almighty placed in all mankind, man and woman. He created us one. The Almighty was so intelligent in creating us with these values to where we cannot exist without each other. You know, in order for these values to manifest, man, I confess, I need you, and I cannot make it without you. We need each other to survive. Just as these human values are nothing alone. What would be right action or righteousness without truth? What would be righteousness and truth without peace? What would be peace without love? See, if a person has a campaign or something they have on their heart that they want to speak, if they don't utilize peace, then they'll make everyone at war with themselves and trying to get one point across. Without utilization or understanding what love is, I might say something the wrong way, just trying to express myself, and may end up stepping on your toes or hurting your feelings without the understanding of love. Without truth, I may be pumped up on the assumption of a wrong idea or a misconception and take it to the threshold of no return just to fail because I don't have an understanding of what truth is, because I'm misled. I can be doing all the wrong things, or all the wrong things for the right reasons. But because of truth, because the Almighty was so intelligent, we need not search outside of ourselves. We need not go into so many institutions or buy or sell our souls, trying to get rid of the house, losing a house note, trying to buy what God has already placed within us all. If we just humble ourselves at times, and ask the elements out there to reveal themselves, things like truth, things like peace. You need peace to be able to handle the things that you are meant to handle, as my good friend Brandy taught me yesterday. Peace to be able to walk away from the things that are out of or beyond our control. And we need the truth to be able to sustain us, to be able to understand, to be able to handle the fact that we can't do everything. We need love. Love, the Almighty reaches us with love. Because of love, I, who once was a gang member and now is a part of the city health department, trying to promote healthy living, you know what I mean, for us all. Health is an issue that is not excluded. It is not prejudice. Health is for us all. Just as love, just as peace, just as right action, all of it is for us all. And if we grasp these.
So, Greg, is there anything you would like me to add?
Well, I would like to first of all say it's just incredibly impactful to see a video like that, because it really shows what teaching human values to young people can do. And it's lovely that the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, when you see a video like that. It's very moving. It's really important, and that's why getting this program into so many schools and educational organizations is so important. While we still have you, yes, we'd love to ask you a question or two. What do you think is the most fundamental remedy for society today? And what do you think is that solution that would free humanity to allow them to sort of get into much more spiritual growth than they are now?
Well, of course, I'll say the Sathya Sai Education and Human Values program. It's a holistic program, and it is based on the Vedas, you know, and it looks very simplistic on the surface, but I think that Sathya Sai Education and Human Values will help usher in the golden age. I feel that with it being for all of humanity, and there's an essence about it that helps us realign with that divinity within ourselves. And so all of us that have been exposed to the program, that have gone through the training, I feel that we have an obligation. Swami gave us the opportunity, or is giving us the opportunity to work with something that he's provided for humankind or humanity. And I do believe that Sathya Sai Education and Human Values is the way to go, that it's non-threatening, non-denominational, it embraces all religions, all cultures, and the power of it, you know, after working with the program for so many years, I'm able to inwardly gauge when the audience reaches that point of connecting with the divinity within themselves. And once we get a taste of that, or anyone gets a taste of that, you want more and you want more and you want more. In working with the program, I've seen people cry when we do the silent sitting, and adults. I've seen transformation in youth and adults. I've seen transformation in myself, and that's the most important part, because we focus on teachers as exemplars and us transforming so that we can help to transform others. And as Marianne Williamson states, and a quote that Nelson Mandela used in his inaugural address, states that we fear the light within us more so than we do the darkness. And it ends with saying that as we let our light shine, we automatically give permission for others to do the same. So I hope that answers your question, that I feel that Sathya Sai Education and Human Values, a program that's for all of humanity, it's unprecedented. And I can say that based on, I've been on boards with other character development programs, and Sathya Sai Education and Human Values is unprecedented because there's a component built in that focuses on the divinity within, and that's been left out. And not saying others aren't doing good work, but SSEHV is it. It's it. Unprecedented.
I completely understand. You're absolutely right. Now, some of us watching, myself included, can be very inspired and want to participate in more of this and perhaps become EHV instructors and guides ourselves. And I understand that you're putting together an online course so that we can actually go out into the communities and help schools with this. Mm-hmm. Would you like to share a little bit about that?
We've been, because of the pandemic, we've had no choice but to do our work online. We're hoping that this pandemic will be over soon and we can actually go back to going to various locations and presenting the course. We will eventually do an SSEHV course online, but we really want to be in person because of the dynamics of that being in person and that heart-to-heart contact and connection with participants.
Absolutely. The heart-to-heart connection is what Barbara always talks about. That's certainly the way we want to keep it.
Yes.
This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and we are so grateful that you could share your time with us. Really, really appreciate it. We'd like to thank Doris Hampton for sharing her evening with us, very valuable time with us.